Welcome everyone to episode 19 of the What Sales and Marketing Got to Do with It podcast. My name is Gemma Adair, founder and principal marketing consultant at Riata Consultancy. This podcast aims to delve deep into the minds of sales and marketing industry leaders, uncovering what keeps them up at night, what drives their passion, and how they execute successful strategies in both their personal and professional lives. I'm delighted to welcome Manish Patel, who has over 10 years experience working in sales. Great to have you, Manish, today.
Thanks, Gemma. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me on the podcast.
Oh, it's great to see you and look forward to this conversation. So please introduce who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Manish Patel. I'm a pre-sales leader with 10 years experience in pre-sales, which I guess we can go on to a little bit later for those who don't know what pre-sales is. I've been in the e-commerce industry for about 15 years. So prior to pre-sales, I actually worked on the services side as an account manager. So a unique perspective of both areas. But yeah, that's me.
Brilliant. So when and where did your sales journey begin for you?
If I look professionally, I think it was in the account management role. So it wasn't really cold sales, but it was more warm leads. So you're looking after accounts where you're trying to upgrade them or cross-sell them to another product or service. I started off in a company called Shopzilla, now called Connexity, big comparison shopping engine before Google Shopping came on the scene. And accounts would have money in their account spending on PPC to get traffic to their website, and that was the basic premise of it. So my job there was to work the accounts so they're profitable, but also trying to upsell the customers into different services and products. So I think that as a professional career perspective, that's where the first kind of element of sales came into my role. Never a big fan of cold calls, or I'm not that type of salesperson, but I don't mind, value and selling. But if I really look further back and really think about it, my first soiree of sales came into play when I was, I think, maybe in high school, where having your own kind of walking shop, as I called it.
Interesting.
Taking orders from people and bringing in their products, whether it's sweets or crisps or drinks or cigarettes. Even though I don't smoke and I didn't procure them, I had a friend who did procure them from his parents, and so I think my element of sales actually goes as far back as that.
Oh wow! And your college days. I know you went to college. What was that like? Did sales kind of come into the mix then as well?
Not really, actually. So in college, I did IT, and so I always wanted to go into the kind of the graphic design area of things. So sales wasn't even a thing for me. I'd never thought about sales. So I went into IT, and then for university, it was multimedia computing to go into graphic design, music production, website designs, that sort of stuff. So there wasn't actually any element of sales in college, really. Actually, in university, I did do something which wasn't allowed, which was back in the day where you had you could download music albums online. So I would actually just to get a bit of money, would use the computer in the university, download music albums, print the cover off, actually, find an image, print the cover, put it into a CD, burn it onto a CD, and sell them for £5 a pop. And actually ended up making a little bit of money. So again, wasn't really looking at sales, but now I think about it, I actually was doing something to do with sales. So not legal, but there we go. That was 25 years ago, so 20 years ago. So
nice, a little side hustle when
yeah,
you're getting your education at the same time.
And paying for it as well, yeah.
There you go. And definitely that whole kind of business mindset, entrepreneurial kind of mindset as well, kind of coming into the mix there, along with the sales as well. Did that little side hustle last for very long? Did you keep that up?
About a year and a half, yeah.
Pretty good.
And then it actually, yeah, it was a while, and then I just stopped. Like, just studies came into play, and I thought, well, it's just too much effort, really. And then I realized, I knew that it wasn't right, so I thought, just quit while you're ahead, So, but it wasn't like I turned into a millionaire overnight. It helped pay for, a couple of nights out, and maybe helped pay for a couple of textbooks, which were astronomical in price back then.
Sure
Maybe
were.
still are right now. I'm not sure, but they were, £80 a pop. So, there's only so much you can. But yeah, no, it didn't last that long. So.
No, that's interesting. That's interesting. So going back to sales and your career in it, have you faced any challenges in sales, and what were they, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of challenges in sales. So just to give a premise to anyone who's listening, I work in pre-sales, which is also sometimes coined as sales engineering or solutions consulting or solutions engineering. They all fit under the moniker of pre-sales, really. So I'll refer to that as pre-sales. And essentially, what we are is we're a team of, let's say, solutions consultants who sit within a sales organization, and we join the sales team on their pipeline deals to help them push the deal over the line. And it could be in many ways. So it could be demonstration of a platform if it's a SaaS-based solution. It may be consulting or workshop sessions. It may be technical integration scoping. It may be a whole host of other things, such as auditing and reviews. So that team that sits in there is also the kind of the cog of the machine for the whole company. It connects the sales organization with the services side and the account management side, well, SaaS and services, and then the marketing team and then the engineering team. So almost kind of like the middle piece that will connect every element of that ecosystem together. So I think there is a lot of challenges in sales, and I think it can be, I guess, if you split them up into different areas, I think the biggest challenge is individual based rather than organizational based at my last place. Organizational based, because I'd been there for 10 years, it kind of evolved over the 10 years. Initially, when you go into an organization, it really depends on how the structure and setup is that will determine the problems you have later on. So if it's a startup or if it's a very unstructured workplace with a lack of communication between departments and lack of kind of cohesive work areas, then what you will find is in sales, you've got let's look at the sales team, you will find they're very isolated and they kind of keep to their own world. And that as a team or a unit would work together as a unit, but they kind of are, I say, disconnected from the wider organization, because if we look at sales, they're very much high pressure jobs, right?
Yeah.
They get to enjoy their results a lot, right? They get paid well, they get to go on sales kickoffs, they get to go on presidents clubs, they get to go and have dinners. But if you call it back, it's a very high pressure job. You have sales targets to hit, etc. So it's very much, they're very focused on themselves. And if that organization isn't communicating, working cohesively with other teams and services, you almost have this divide. And the divide is very hard to kind of work within an organization, especially when you're working in sales and you're trying to sign a deal. That's where you start to find blockers, for example. It may be a legal team, it may be the approval chain that hits different people in different departments. It may be, a handover of a deal that's been signed to a services department where they don't have the collected information that you've worked through a sales cycle, maybe 6 months. And now they received the customer and they don't know what to do. Or the customer's been sold something which really isn't, doable, for example. So there's a lot of different problems that may arise just in the sales, I said the sales department, but in that kind of structure. But if you look at a company that has a really good structure, really good communication, I think there are little areas where it may or may not arise based on where you are. So approval chain is always one thing that is always going to be, it seems to be a problem. I don't want to talk about my last company's approval chain, but let's just say there were more than a handful of people in the chain. It got changed recently, but it was a pain to, especially when you're on a Friday and you've got a deal that's coming through, and three people in the approval chains are based in the US, and
Time difference.
it's the weekend, and then you're thinking, right, it's the end of the quarter, this deal has to go through. This is going to hit numbers, but there's a discount maybe applied or a deal offer applied based on them signing a certain time. Everybody's looking at this deal being signed, and the two people who have to finally sign it off are actually not online. So I'd say I could probably speak about issues in sales for a lot, but I'll stop on that. I don't want to waste spend all the time talking about this. But
no, I think you've you know, those are very relevant challenges in sales, you know. And I think with these type of deals, you know, you're not talking just a few thousand, you know, some of them can go up into the, you know, the millions or whatever. So it's kind of you're getting pressure from all different angles. And it's like, okay, you know, we have to get it over the line, or you're trying to get it over the line. And there's a lot of people in the mix to, you know, to conclude that deal. So I think that's, yeah, you've referenced some real challenges there within sales for sure. So take us through sort of going back. What did a day in the life of Manish look like? But also what's the day in the life of Manish right now? Take us through that.
Yeah. So I left my job in September. I decided to after over 10 years leave the position, take a career break, and go traveling for 2.5 months. So went and spent a month in Japan, time in Australia and Singapore, came back home just before Christmas. So before and after looks widely different. Before, a day in the life in my role, again, no day was the reason why I was there at 10 years was it always evolved. You know, your day was never the same. It wasn't monotonous. Day after day, your weeks would differ from week to week, and the month would be different from month to month. But overall, the job kind of was the same across the year. So I used to manage a team of 5 to 6 people across Europe. And so my job was not only management, coaching the team and making sure they're doing a good job, but also jumping on onto deals as well, where I was needed in terms of my expertise or experience or knowledge was needed just to help a deal push along to the next step, or maybe move the needle a little bit, or maybe even help close the deal. I wouldn't physically close the deal in terms of negotiations and contracts, but you know, what I can do is if there is I think a point that hasn't been covered, or if there are concerns from the customer, I could maybe come into the call, have a chat with them and alleviate them, maybe, you know, might get them to push on forward. So right now, at the moment, I'm actually not actively searching for a job. I'm just seeing what's in the market. I want to make sure that the next role is going to be my next 5-10 year role again. So I don't want to just jump into any role. I've given myself until June, July, potentially, and usually job market opens up around February, March. It starts, you know, getting a bit stronger. So, so to keep busy, I've had a side, call it a side hustle, but more legit one at least now. I've had my
thank God for that.
I've had a side business for about 10 years, e-commerce based as well. So I'm just spending time keeping myself busy on that to just help scale it while I've got the time. And then it's all passive income as well, or it can lead to passive income. So when I go back into full-time work, I don't really need to spend as much time as I'm doing now, but I treat it as a job. So, you know, I'll wake up, I might spend 6 hours a day, 5-6 hours a day on it. That's not really a job, but as close as, and it gives me structure in my day. Otherwise, I probably sleep in, I wake up, sleep late. I won't really be doing much throughout the day. And I really need a bit of structure and something to kind of keep me going.
And I think it helps as well, you know, like with mindset, because if you're at home and you're not doing anything, you don't have that structure, you know, you'll get like you won't feel motivated. And you know, you'll come up out of that routine, because it was not so long ago you were in a routine day to day, and then, you know, traveling, and then, you know, trying to find at least some kind of routine or structure, like you said, is quite important. Which makes, yeah.
I didn't realize the difference, but when I came out of work and, you know, the routine I'd had for 10 years, I didn't realize, because I went traveling, I left 2 weeks after I'd quit work. So I had 2 weeks of just hecticness trying to sort out everything I needed for 2.5 months. Then I went away and I came back. Then it was Christmas. It wasn't until January where it really hit me that I actually don't have anything to do. I don't have structure. I had an idea while I was away. Okay, I'm going to continue doing this, but I really hadn't sat down and thought, right, let me make a list of everything I'm going to do. Let me figure out how I'm going to structure my day. Let me get this organized or do this. And I really hadn't figured that out. And I think 2nd January, when everybody was going back to work, I realized actually I don't have any work, which is great. And then I realized, well, actually, I don't actually know how or what I should be doing day to day,
Right.
where I should be spending my hours. So that's the first thing I did. I started making a to-do list. I signed up for Monday.com on a free version. I'd used it at my work before. So
Oh,
I
brilliant. Yeah.
created a board of things I need to do, and I created a bit of a structure. But my dad retired about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I think it was now. And he's always an active person. He needs something in his life. So
Do.
he straight away, he'd volunteer at the charity shop 3 times a day. He does gardening for maybe a day or 2 days at his place and other people's places just to keep himself busy. And then he'll relax for a day or two during the week to watch whatever he wants to watch on TV. But I now, I mean, I'm way off retirement age, but I really understand that, once you've had this structure for 40 years, suddenly it stops. You just don't know what to do with yourself. So yeah, you're right. I think structure is massively important.
Oh, wow. And just out of curiosity, what did your dad work in sales, or what
No,
did he
no,
do?
no. You know what? Actually, he's enjoying working in the charity shop. He loves the element of sales. It's so
Oh,
funny
brilliant.
because they get products in. He loves pricing them up. He then loves selling it. He speaks to the customer. He absolutely enjoys it. So it's really funny because he could have probably been a salesperson, but no, he was an electrical engineer. So he had a very interesting job. He worked on, wiring and mechanical, factory related equipment, lock mechanisms. He helped wire up Wimbledon Court #1 at one point as well. So he was working on that project when they were
Oh, brilliant.
rewiring that. So he's done a few interesting stuff, but yeah, he could have been a salesperson, I reckon.
See, he's living the dream now with being in
Now,
sales. Yes,
he's just not
in
getting
in
paid for
in
it.
the but I love it. It seems like he absolutely loves what he does, and
Yeah,
that's really great. And it's a charity, so he's
yeah.
giving back in a lot of different ways. Going back to sales, and you've probably alluded to it earlier. So what did you like most about sales, and
Mhm.
what did you like least about sales?
The cold calling, like that's not me. I'm not a cold calling business developer. So I've never enjoyed
Okay.
that part of sales. So that's why I've never become a business development manager. I never went into the hardcore sales.
Yeah.
Um, I never enjoyed, bashing that out and the phone calls out every day, bashing out emails, and then trying to get through the gatekeepers. I never enjoyed it. I did try it once.
Mm.
They tried to incorporate that into the account management element, and I just said, "This isn't what I signed up for. I'll do it for 1 quarter and I'll stop." And that's what I did. I did
Okay.
it for 1 quarter. I did hit my targets in that 1 quarter, and then I just stopped because I just didn't enjoy it at all. So that's definitely the biggest element I don't like. Is everything else. So if I truly believe in something that I'm selling, so the software or a service, and I'm passionate about it, and I see a value for the customer, I will sell it. I'll build value. I will sell the product. I like the wins. When a
Yeah.
contract signs, I like the end result of wins. I think everybody does, and everybody hates the losses. But um, I think the typical part of sales. Really, nobody likes doing cold calling, but everybody likes the other side of things. So yeah.
No, I think cold calling comes up quite a bit with sales. From your experience, what are your misconceptions about sales?
Um, yeah, you know what? I think I've been guilty of this early on in my career, so I could probably speak of this. Is I think the same view that everybody else has from the outside in, which is they get paid a lot, they get to enjoy going out on dinners and events and drinks and sales kickoffs and as presidents clubs and enjoy all of this stuff, um, and they don't do as much work, right? Or they don't do as much work as you think. And I have been guilty of this once. I remember a period of time, and it was because I was in pre-sales. So, you'd be that expert or the subject matter expert or that tech guru or whatever you're coined at that time to go into the call and help them sell something. And so you may feel like you've done all the work, you've done, you know, demoing the platform, you've tried selling the platform or the software, you've done all the communications via email with their team, you've done X, Y, and Z, whatever it may be. And sometimes you feel like you've done the selling for this person because that salesperson doesn't know anything, or that salesperson isn't as good as a job, or that salesperson didn't speak up on the call. And so you feel like you've done all the work. And sometimes you may be right. You have done a massive amount of work to try and get this deal over the line. And sometimes you don't see the other side of things. So that may be the case, but so I was guilty of this, but sales is a hard job. So what I did tell my team, there were some times when they early on in their career they felt the same way, and I said, okay, that is fine. You may be valid for this point, but what we do is maybe 20 to 30% of what the sales team do in the background. So cold calling, getting the leads, then trying to get through the gatekeepers, then keep trying to make that relationship up, then keeping on top of that 24/7. They're never off their phones, right? It's always on. And then going through that whole process of getting it to a phone call where you're bought into it, right? And then you're bought into it, or you hear about a phone call that happened and they then sold it, but you don't see the 80% of work they have to do, and they have to keep doing it. I knew of a salesperson who was on their honeymoon on a beach signing a deal because it was a deal and it was on their phone, and they just don't switch off. They never switch off. So that element of things people don't see. And then there's the other side of things, the pressure. If you don't hit a month or a bookings or a quarter in bookings, is your job on the line? If you hit nothing, if you don't hit your target in 6 months, you might be out of a job. Whereas, if for anybody, I invite anyone to join. And I haven't joined the sales team for this reason. I invite anyone who wants to do all of that, right, and have the job on the line every 3 months, right, to then, if they really want to enjoy what sales do and have all the spoils after it, go and do the job. And I'm telling you, like 80%, 90% of people will fail because they don't like the rest of it. They see one picture, but they don't see anything else. And I was guilty of it myself. But I learned when I actually looked at the bigger picture, there's a lot that goes on in sales that people don't see. Not only just the day-to-day job, but also, that individual has to go through a high pressured period where, and their job's on the line every quarter, sometimes in some places every month, maybe, whereas other job roles, you're not on the line every quarter. So.
Wow. Yeah. That's a lot to take in. What skills do you think someone needs to work in sales? Or what do you think are key attributes of a salesperson? Like, what makes a good salesperson?
Yeah, it's a good question. So if I talk, let's talk about tech sales or SaaS sales specifically, because there's, the sales skills maybe slightly vary on different types of sales, but obviously the ability to sell, which is, let's discount that. I think the best salespeople I've seen are those who know the product inside out, know the services they sell inside out, are more consultative. Not consultative to a point where they lose the sale, but consultative into a point where they're able to dissect exactly what the requirements of the customer are and present them a solution that they need. Technical as well. The best salespeople are actually more technical than you would think, because they know their product inside out. They know what it can do, what it can't do, to the point where they can have conversations with, even at a high level, with somebody who's maybe a CTO or an engineer or somebody on a tech team. A great listener, great communicator, but somebody who has the ability to bring in the right people from different teams to benefit the deal moving forward, not just call people into a call or a meeting because you might need to be here. It's like, okay, they've identified every element of that deal cycle and know exactly when they're going to need somebody in, and they prepare for it. If it's a month in advance or a week in advance, or sometimes 3 months in advance, I've seen people prepare for it. Like, I'm going to need you in 3 months' time. So, or I'm going to need this person, that person in 3 months' time. And I've seen them plan this out. So I'd say the best the best salespeople are a mix of that. But there is
Mm.
also one other thing that I've noticed personally is um, the best salespeople know and continuously generate pipeline. Because if you don't have a pipeline, you pretty much lost that quarter. And then you're
Mm.
spending the next 2 months generating pipeline. And if a deal cycle is longer than a month on average or 2 months on average, tech sales, sometimes it could be anywhere between 3 months, 6 months, 9 months to 12 months. That deal isn't coming through the next quarter as well. So that's suddenly 6 months. You may be not hitting your target for 6 months because you're building pipeline that you forgot to build before. And the best salespeople never chase the unicorn, as I refer to it. And a unicorn is a deal that's never going to come through. And
Okay,
so
right.
they're the ones who identified every element of their deal, from who the stakeholders are, what the legal process is, who they need to sign off, how many sign-off stages they're going to go through, everything they need about that deal, they know inside out. And if a deal's not going to come through, they won't spend 3 months chasing that deal. They would have enough in a pipeline to say, all right, I'll park this and I'm going to work on 3 other deals. So that's it, I think. I
It's a
might be
lot
wrong.
of
That's it. But
I was just like, there's a lot of nuggets in there for
yeah.
sure. That someone listening to this podcast is like, right, yes. And I think I can relate as well from working with a lot of sales guys, business development, sales teams. Like you've kind of highlighted, I'd say, quite a few key things in that. In what you've just said there now, which brings me to, I'm a firm believer of marketing and sales alignment, sorry. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, massively, massively. Um, there is a difference 19 day to a business when marketing and sales don't align and when they do align.
Mm.
Um, the lead generation that is evident when marketing and sales align completely is night and day. Like I've seen it before across my last 10 years, actually, at my previous place. I've seen it at companies before it as well, where if the marketing team and the sales team don't align, lead generation is practically nothing. And the leads that do come
Mm.
through don't really mean anything. But when they do align, everything is really geared towards one goal, which is drive bookings, drive pipeline, and it works back downwards. So how
Yeah,
we're going to do this, right? What product is out? What service are we going to promote? And the sales team are waiting for, let's say, marketing to do a campaign, but they're working together. So let's say there's a webinar on advertising, for example, for a product or a service, right? Sales team are invested in this, and then the marketing leads that come off the back of that, they're ready with their cadences from there. So I think it's massive, and it's not just marketing as well. I think sales and services have to be aligned, right? The pre-sales, the post-sales of it, the aftercare, because a nurtured account is going to grow more. And
yeah,
one of the big things that my previous company did they used to call it the land and expand,
yeah,
which was land a deal, expand it. Um, but also the aftercare was so important. The NSI, the net service impact, the churn, it all reduced because you're looking after the customer more when they're um, in services once they sign a contract, and it starts from once the contract's signed. If you look
yeah,
at it from a customer's perspective, I've just signed a multi-thousand, maybe £1 million deal with you, and you can either have two paths. Either they have a seamless handover because they've been introduced to their team before they've signed a contract and they know exactly who's working their accounts. That is seamlessly handed off. They know exactly what's happening, what's going on, and there's no kind of gap or no break in that. And so whether they're onboarded onto their platform, whether there's any integrations to be done, whether there's any account setups, whatever it may be, that's seamless. Then there's the other side, whereas sales, sign a deal, here you go, that customer's just spent thousands of pounds and they're
yeah.
looking at this team for the first time in their life and they're thinking, I'm hearing from you, you don't know what's going on, and I've just signed a contract.
Mm.
That plays a massive part because the first impressions they last, and then if that doesn't go right, that customer's not going to sign another expansion or re-sign their contract 12 months down the line. The likelihood is the percentage is going to decrease massively. So I think everyone needs to really work together for sales. And sales also need to work for services.
Yeah,
In that side, they got to help the account management team be happy. They have to help. They hand over to the implementation team or whoever's going to be looking after that account. So it works both ways, I think.
Definitely that kind of customer life cycle, that whole kind of touch points, there's different touch points within the business and they have to come together, like work in collaboration. You've got a wealth of knowledge, wealth of experience. How did you keep abreast of what was happening in the market? Whether it's your industry, whether it's your solutions that you sold, like what was your kind of, what tools, what did you have to hand?
So earlier on, I can't remember 11 years back what we had. It was just more, it was more learning. I mean, a lot of things weren't around like 10 years ago. Facebook ads wasn't around, Shopify wasn't around. A lot of this AI, it's suddenly coming through. TikTok wasn't around. TikTok's only been around 2 and 3 years. If you really look at it, there's a lot of things that weren't around. So back then it was mainly books and any kind of internet websites. I'm speaking really old, internet websites or websites that were more like blogs. So a lot of blogs, and then there was YouTube as well. Again, not a lot of content on YouTube than you have now, but you have, again, a media like YouTube and TikTok, which, I say TikTok because I do use TikTok. I started to get addicted to TikTok, but there's a lot of things that I would go on to TikTok for. So if I wanted to find out something about AI, I can look on YouTube Shorts, but then I can go on TikTok and type it in, and you might have 100 videos, and just have to dissect which ones are actually real and which ones are just like clickbait. But you've got that. You've got books. I love reading books. So I would definitely buy loads of books off Amazon. I've got a bookshelf full of 15 books I'm still going through. Yeah, so they're from sales book to entrepreneurial books to tech books. But yeah, it's just mainly just going on online really and reading blogs and mainly trying things out really. So there's a lot of AI stuff going on now, but I was trying out AI when it first came out. Prior to that, using the software that you're actually selling, but using a connector software. So as a retailer, for our software was e-commerce based. So a retailer is going to use an Amazon, it's going to use a Shopify website, it's going to use Facebook and Google Ads. I will personally go and try them out. I may lose a bit of money on it just because I'm trying out the system to understand exactly what's going on. But I would go and lose money, but I know I'm paying for knowledge. So if I lose £30 in 1 month because I subscribe for something for a month to use it, I've just gained a wealth of knowledge for that £30. I could go out and spend £30 on, go to a bar or something and spend £30. And obviously we do, but if I'm gaining that wealth of knowledge, it's only benefiting me. So I kind of look at it that way.
Now that's some really good advice there, which brings me to the question, if a young person, let's say, wanted to work in sales, or perhaps someone just wants to change their career or try something new, what advice would you give them if someone wanted to go into sales, to get into sales?
So I'll answer the question in 2 parts. So if they wanted to get into sales, I'd say just do it. Like, there's a lot of things with sales. There's a lot of elements to sales. Sorry. So the first thing to do is just get a sales job. Just get any job selling something. So you understand selling something. If you already understand that and you want something more structured, then go into a tech-based sales company, or a sales company that sells a service, but something which is more corporate based, where they may have a structure where you can learn the structure and the steps. But if you don't have the experience, just get into anything. Just start learning. Not double glazing, not unless that's what you want. Unless you want to go double glazing or want to sell houses or cars, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're talking about going into corporate sales, then just go into any kind of corporate sales job and just learn. The first 3 to 5 years you're learning. Hopefully you're, as an individual, you're really, really good. And, after a year you become this really great salesperson, but there's a lot to learn over the time. And you'll find the best salespeople have taken time to learn through that process. And some of the best salespeople I've met didn't start off as purely salespeople. They transitioned into sales. But what they did was they picked up all that knowledge throughout their kind of their working career. It might be in 5 or 10 years, and then transition into sales and then become great at sales. And because they were able to pick up all that knowledge. So it may not work straight away, but it's just going to be the course of time. You're just going to pick up all that knowledge and you'll be able to refine how you sell. And if it doesn't work at one company, then move to another one, because not every product is going to be the same. So there may be products that are harder to sell. Some people are a bit more attuned to selling that product, but others aren't. So for example, let's say if you take a software that does analytics, for example, just as dashboard analytics, and it does whatever it may be around analytics. And then you take something which is more for technical software, maybe something, and I'll take, let's say blockchain and Bitcoin and stuff, blockchain and stuff. Some people may not understand anything to do with crypto and blockchain. And so if they go into a sales role there, they may not be successful, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to be successful at another company, such as an analytics tool, which they do understand. So it may be just a case of if you don't find success at one place or you find it hard, move somewhere else. For somebody who is wants to go into, let's say, pre-sales, which is what I do and specialize in, there are kind of pre-sales associate or junior jobs that you can go into at base level and just pick up on the role. There is also a collective, we call it. It's a pre-sales collective, and it's run by pre-sales leaders in the industry, and they do courses for free, where you can get a certification, and then they help you also. I can't remember. I'm not sure if that part's paid or not. I'm pretty sure it's free, but you can check it out. Once you finish the course, they'll help you get placements at other companies as well.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah, and there's it's a big community of people within pre-sales globally, from startups to all the way to big corporate as well, and everybody is just it's a great kind of networking. Let's call it a collective. It's a group. I'm not sure how to term it, but it's kind of like a networking group. So it's pretty good. It's growing every year. And anyone who wants to look into pre-sales should definitely check that out.
Perfect. Do you have to become a member, or are you a member currently, or how does it all work?
I'm a member, but you have the free membership, which is just a normal member. There's a leadership membership, which is different, and that's a paid version. But obviously, it's only for leaders, and the leaders are going to be those who have been in the industry for a while. So the membership is, you just sign up and then you're a member. That's it.
Oh, perfect. No, that's great. No. Some good advice then on, if someone wanted to go into sales. Yeah, there's some good advice for both anyone sort of new to sales or looking to kind of make that transition from an existing sort of career path, for sure. Going to take you to work-life balance. So let's talk about your work-life balance, maybe before, because it's changed up quite a bit recently, but how did you create work-life balance previously, or was there work-life balance? Just take us through that.
So I had to force work-life balance on myself. I think prior to COVID, and then through COVID, ended up getting into routine where I was working. I think a lot of people are guilty of this. Working longer than we should have done, because you're at home, the laptop's just there, you just continue working, and then you get into a routine because everybody's online, and you're working, that you don't realize that you've just done, not even a 12-hour day, you've done maybe a 16-hour day, starting at 9, finishing at 11 o'clock at night, and it became the norm. And 5 days a week, this is what I'm doing, and other people are doing the same. We're logging in, and there may be even a group of 4 or 5 people who would log in and we'd just Zoom each other, because we knew at 10:30 at night we're still working. And then it got to the point where we talked about this, and I remember I raised it, and I realized that this is not normal. This is absolutely not normal. Like you're just constantly exhausted. You wake up, you're exhausted. You go to bed, you're exhausted. You don't really have much time but just to have dinner and maybe watch half an hour of TV, but really nothing else to do. So no other time to do anything. And I think it wasn't until I realized that where I sat down for dinner one time and I looked next to me and I realized my wife wasn't sitting next to me and she was doing the same thing
Mm,
in the spare room and we were just working. And then I realized actually this has been going on for a really, 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 really long time where both of us are working such long hours. We don't even spend time to eat dinner together anymore. And that's when I thought, right, this is wrong. So I then made a call where I thought, okay, and this was near the end of the year. So I made a call, okay, from January, I'm no longer working after 6 o'clock. Only if I want to or have to, but I'm no longer working and weekends. I'm not going to work on the weekends and I'm not going to work after 6 o'clock, maximum 7 o'clock if I have to push it, but then I'm going to switch off. And so I made that first call. And for the first 3 to 4 weeks, I felt like I needed to do something. I felt lost, almost like because we spoke
mm,
about the structure thing, but that was my life structure. And I realized that I actually have just killed off 5 hours of my day, 4 hours of my day where I'm actually usually working because I know what I'm doing. I'm jumping on a laptop and working. Now I've got nothing to do, so I'm looking around. I'm like, what do I do with myself, right?
mm.
I kind of got used to it afterwards. Obviously once you get used to the time off, but I say time off, but actually your time. But I made sure that I stopped off I switched off at 6 o'clock, and I always make sure that anyone who works in my team doesn't work late hours because I went through that process of burnout and I don't want anyone else to go through it. And while it's exciting and maybe some team members are young and they've got lots of energy and they've got lots of drive and focus, it's great. If you want to do the odd evening here and there because you really want to, then that's fine. But you shouldn't have to do it 3 days in a row, 4 days in a row, right? So I had to create it for myself, and then that just became the de facto rule, which is after 6 o'clock, I'm switching off. This is going to be my time now. I've done enough hours, and then I had to speak with my wife about this, and it, let's say we had a few debates about this,
Yeah.
about her work, and um, and while I respect everything she did, I did see the outside of it, and then she made a change as well, and now her working hours are brilliant for herself, and she's no longer working. She worked for a Japanese company. She had to wake up early in the morning for a call. She would work through a lunch break because there was a worldwide call. After work, she would have to stay up for the Americans as well, the American
Oh
calls.
gosh,
So she was
time
working.
zones.
She's working 3 time zones, or how many time zones there are. She's working, from Japan, calls with Japan, calls with
Oh
America and
gosh.
Europe. So she's on from 6 o'clock in the morning sometimes all the way through to midnight. And I'm like, you can't work like this. So yeah, sometimes you have to force it in yourself. Sometimes you have to realize that you're really working way too much and you're burning out. Um, I guess the other side of this is actually the other side of the coin. I know we work-life balance is a massive, massive thing for everybody's mental health and everybody's well-being. But I do think on the other side that somebody who's driven or has a goal to reach and is just focused on this one goal will
Yeah.
not worry about work-life balance because their focus is this. They want to get to a certain destination, and however they will do that, whatever they need to do, they'll do it. So if it means I want to be the best at X, and for this I need to do this and this and this, and I'm going to take on more responsibility, and I'm going to do this, and it will help me get there. They will do it. So it has to be like a self-realization at one point, or you have to have a manager who actually draws it down into you. But
Mm,
I used to be one of those where I would constantly make sure that I'm not hearing about anyone in my team working 2 days in a row until 9 o'clock at night. That does, I don't want that happening. The work can always be done at one point, but you know, I was guilty of it, and I did see progression because maybe I worked so hard, or maybe if I didn't work so hard, I might still have got it. Who knows? But it has to be a self-realization. But when it does happen, I think it's a really good thing, um,
oh,
especially
no,
for my health. It's good.
that's great. And I think as well, it's realizing it before it's too late or before something happens
Mhm.
because of that lack of work-life balance, or really just kind of just pushing too far. Just um,
I've
I
seen
think
it happen with
it's
people
yeah.
before. Like, I've heard of stories, seen people where they've burnt out to the point where they've had a breakdown. They're just
Mm,
so burnt out. Um, and, it may be that they haven't realized that they pushed themselves to the new norm, which is that, I use this as a barometer of how much more they're working past what they should be. And they've burnt out to the point where there's, no matter how great a person they are, or in terms of working for a company, that company is never going to get them back. And so for a company,
Mm,
they lose out. For that person, they lose out on a job they might have loved and now they don't like. And then they have to kind of reset themselves after this to then be okay with going on and working another job afterwards. So it does have a toll on one's life, I think, especially those who burn out and continuously, like you said, just continuously burn out until they drop, really, and they're like, oh, I can't take this anymore.
definitely. And it's not only the person that's going through that burnout, it's the knock-on effect on
Yeah.
the people around them, the
Hmm.
family, and I mean, no loved one wants to see their other loved one or the person
Hmm.
in that position like burning out and
Yeah.
kind of so it's yeah, it's
That's
very important
It's
to
got a knock-on effect on the
yeah,
team as well. So, you
yeah,
have one
yeah,
person who
team
burns
as
out,
well. Yeah,
that person goes away on, let's say, sick leave for a week or two. There's that individual's work that's spread around the team. Now, the rest of the team have more
to
work to
take
do.
on.
Then somebody else might burn out. So it has a knock-on effect on those team members and then their
And
families and
then
their personal
yes,
life. So yeah,
yeah, it just kind of trickles down.
yeah.
What is your passion in life and what drives you?
Ah, passion in life. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know how I can say passion in life because I like doing things, but I don't, it's not a passion, it's not like an obsession passion. I wouldn't say obsession passion, but it's not
Okay.
like, but it's like, I, I like, I like traveling,
Hmm.
um, and going to places where I haven't been able to before. So hence the traveling thing that I did for 2.5 months around Japan. Japan was my number one on my bucket list for 20 plus years.
Oh, wow.
Um, and if I look at how I'm able to do that, it's because I'm able to pay for it. So
Yeah.
I would say money is a definite driver, um, to a degree.
Yeah.
Now, I don't need to be a billionaire. I'm quite comfortable with the basics, bare bones of, like, a house, a roof over my head, food, etc., etc., and then being able to spend money on experiences. So I'm very much into
Yes.
experiences. I don't need the latest clothes or what latest car or whatever it is. I like experiences. Most of them I get from traveling to places, or so like doing a walk with lions in a wildlife park in Mauritius, or going traveling up and down Japan, or going to Cuba and experiencing Cuba for 2 weeks. Like, those kind of experiences where they're unique, and I get to pay for them, obviously from the job. But I, like I said, I've always had a entrepreneurial, I guess it's in the blood. I've got, my uncles have owned businesses before. We've kind of grown up. I think Indians naturally have a business bone somewhere in their body. Um, but so, and I think it relates to sales as well. I like getting sales. So like I like that win off a sale. So I might sell a
Mm.
product, or I might sell an item, or I might sell something. And if somebody buys it from me and I see the result, I initially I get boosted, but if it continuously happens, it just I think that motivates me as well. So for me, I mean, business is a passion. I guess if you want
Hmm.
to say that business is a
Yeah, yeah,
passion,
yeah, yeah,
maybe
yeah,
it could
yeah.
be full
Yep.
circle round. I finally figured it out. So entrepreneurial business is a passion. So I think that's my passion, really. I mean, I guess I wouldn't be spending time in my evenings and weekends doing it if I wasn't passionate about it. So maybe that's it. Maybe you just figured it out. Maybe if someone asked me that question again, now I know.
There you go. There you go.
So,
Which brings me to my next question. Um, is there somebody that inspires you, dead or alive?
ooh, that's a good question, isn't it? That's a good question. Um, I don't think there's some one
Okay.
single person, but there's a type of person that inspires me.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah.
So I'm inspired by anyone who has self-made
Mm.
themselves into being successful. And I'm because of what I do, I quite like listening to podcasts or reading about individuals who've created a business out of nothing. And maybe they've done it from their home, maybe they've not had any money, maybe they've gone bankrupt or whatever it may be, but they've created a successful business. And it might be, if you look at Jeff Bezos creating the first
Mm.
remnants of Amazon, living in the loft with people sleeping on the floor, or it may be, I forgot her name, but the lady who created this Cambridge Satchel Company from her kitchen, and the story about her ringing, a shop every hour, every day to find the name of a supplier and creating a small logo in clip art, if you remember clip art, and
Clip
it's
art.
still the logo now and being successful. Or, I mean, you look at Peter Jones on Dragon's Den, he was
Yeah,
bankrupt.
Peter
He was
Jones.
bankrupt at one point.
Mm.
And I listen to podcasts about, the random person you've never heard of who lives maybe a town away and sells something on Etsy and makes £10,000 a month now. So I get inspired by them. I get inspired by anyone who is able to start something and make themselves successful in their own whatever they see as success.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I get inspired by that. So I listen to a lot of podcasts and read a lot of books about individuals who've built something from scratch, whatever it may be, and had success doing that, and that inspires me. Yeah. So
That's a good answer to the question, which brings me to my next question. If you could speak to your younger self, what would you
ah,
say to them?
I wouldn't say anything. I
No?
really wouldn't. I really wouldn't say anything because I'm a big believer that and if I had, let's say I was in a really unhappy place, I maybe have
Mm,
gone back and said, all right, do this differently and you'll be in a happier place. But because I'm not in an unhappy place, and even anything that is unhappy in your life, your personal life or whatever professional life, I think that makes a person be who they
mm.
are. And I like who I am. And I think I've taken those experiences and molded myself into what I may be. So all the kind of mistakes and what I used to do when I was younger, any lack of experiences I may have had, which I then gained eventually, and maybe mistakes in my professional career that I may have made, that's all for me a learning curve. And so if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be further along that I am. I could have made that earlier and I could have become who I am now earlier, but then it just doesn't fit with the rest of your life. So I wouldn't go back and say, actually, the only one thing I might have said is the lottery numbers. So I might have said, okay, on this day, these are going to be the jackpot numbers. Put a pound down on the ticket. So
That's a
actually,
good
no,
one.
that's the only one I probably might have said, which is like, yeah, go and win the lottery. But apart from anything else, I probably wouldn't have said anything.
Oh, awesome. Well, we talked about the younger years. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Working for a tech company is as a pre-sales leader, um, having probably helped them grow and develop as an organization over the course of 5 years. And not sure what position, I'm not sure, what tech company, but that's where I see myself. And hopefully it's the same tech company. I like to stay at a place and build, it's not a dynasty, but like kind of build a legacy of that time and evolve the company to the point where I feel like, okay, there's nothing left for me to do here. I know I can move on, which was one of the cases of my last company. I'd kind of built it to a point where there wasn't much else I could add. And once I stopped adding value, I personally feel like I need a new challenge. And it took 10 years for me to feel like that. So hopefully still at the same company in 5 years. Oh,
Nice.
also hopefully maybe winning the jackpot on the lottery, that might help as well. So
What about the side hustle?
keep that going.
Yeah.
That's generating money. So if in the time between now and me finding a job that scales to the point where I'm making a lot more money, it is a nice option for me to have as kind of going full time on it. But I don't feel it's one of those things where I always feel like I kind of need more. I don't know why.
Right.
I feel like I need something more. I need to push myself more. And when I have less, I feel like I'm being lazy.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's a weird mindset to have or if that's just
Mhm.
me. But it's like I can work on my business for 5 hours today, and I feel like I might not have achieved anything. But if I had the 9 to 6 job and then I worked on the business for the next 3 hours, I went to sleep at 1 o'clock in the morning, which I'm not to, I'm used to, I felt like I achieved more and I felt like there's more. So I don't know whether it's an option to go full time, but I would hopefully it grows and then it can pay for my traveling. So
More travel, more experiences, right?
yeah, more
That'd be
experiences.
great. That'd be great. Sorry, not who. What do you want to be remembered by?
Wow. Okay. Is it after I'm dead or is that after I'm dead or
Yes,
gone?
yes,
Yes, yes.
yes, yes. What do you want to be remembered by?
For my friends and family, just someone who made them happy and laugh.
Hmm.
Um, Good times. For my professional colleagues or for my professional career, I say the same thing, but also one that gave back to them. Someone who helped them in their lives, maybe grow professionally, mentor them, etc. So yeah.
Nice, nice. I love this question. If you had a chance to be a superhero or have superpowers, um, who would you be and why? Or if you chose those superpowers, why would you choose those superpowers?
Oh, that's always a tough one, isn't it? Because we always talk about this between friends. So I would say, I mean, look, one of my favorite superheroes is Wolverine. Um, Purely because of the adamantium in his body, like his, regeneration of health, and I'd say that's a pretty cool thing. You can do as much as you can do a lot, and knowing that you're gonna, your body will regen. Um, but then
Definitely.
there's Iron Man as well, and he's just cool. Iron Man is very cool. But then I don't like heights, so I don't know. Maybe Wolverine. I don't know. Yeah, I think Wolverine because you can self you. I feel like if I was Wolverine, I'd take more risks with my body in terms of experiences. So you know, I said I don't like heights, but like there are things that you would do, like maybe X Games stuff, like flying out of a plane and stuff. I feel like if I broke a few bones, that's fine because they'll regen in a minute. So I think I would experience more in life. So yeah, maybe that.
That's a good one. Good superhero. And I don't think anyone has mentioned that superhero on the podcast. So that's
What
interesting.
have you got? Have you had Superman or Batman? And
Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, you know, people want to be invisible, you know,
yeah, that's a good one.
they want to transport, transportation,
Mm,
all of that good stuff. So um last but not least, we've got two more questions. If you had to ask the audience a question, what would that be?
that's a good one, isn't it? You stumped me this one. If I had to ask the audience a question, what would it be? Um, if if they won £100,000 in the lottery, what would they do with it?
Interesting. That's a good
Or a
question.
million, but yeah, either way. Bump it up to how much you want. But yeah, if they won the lottery to a certain amount, what would they do with the money?
That's a good question. I wonder what the answers would be. We'd be flooding with loads of answers
Yeah.
on what people would want to do with that money. Um, do you have any final words that you would like to share?
um, Not really. No, I think I've shared enough. I wouldn't want to kind of
Yeah,
go. I wouldn't want to
you've
go
shared
over the same
loads.
stuff again. So not really. I mean, I again remember the last thing, which is anyone looking to get into sales, just do it. Just jump in, experience it. If you don't like it, try it again. Try to experience twice or three times, and then if you really don't like it, then leave. And sales is not for you. Um, but you might find that you might enjoy it.
Those were great final words. Manish, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast today. I think there's loads of tips and tricks that you've provided listeners. So thank you very much for sharing your story. Thank you for being honest and open. And it's just been a real pleasure. So thank you very much for
No,
your time today.
Thanks for having me, Gemma, and thanks for not stumping me a lot more with the questions. But the great questions, actually. I had a good time. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no worries. And who knows, we'll get you back on maybe in 6, 7 months' time, and who knows where you'll be then.
Yeah, happy to come back.
Perfect. Have a good day. Take care.
Thanks. You too. Bye.